Hi everybody, it's 2:30 and it's Friday and it's time for our Family Friday program and it's all about fish today. So we're here in our geology gallery because we have this beautiful mural behind us and you can see some of the fish that were here on the Colorado Plateau a long time ago. You are going to get to listen to a scientist today and some of the vocabulary words I want you to be listening to. And then we have a fun fish activity to do where you are going to create your own fish species. So our first one of our vocabulary words is environment. Environment is the physical surroundings on Earth for everything living or non-living. This here is my environment in the museum. Okay? Environment. Pay attention to that word. Fish anatomy. The fish's body parts that make him a fish is fish anatomy. Native fish is one that is found in a certain environment. It belongs there naturally. Native fish. A non-native fish, or you could even hear the word invasive fish. The animal which does not naturally belong in this place, and you can find them where they don't naturally belong. Non-native fish or invasive. They're hurting the environment, that environment. Endangered is an animal or plant that is in danger of disappearing forever.
We actually have a really great guest with us today. This is Larry Stevens. Say hello to Larry Stevens, everybody. Hi, Larry.
Hello,
and you are a scientist. Why don't you tell us what kind of scientist you are?
Well, I'm an ecologist. So an ecologist is somebody that studies biology and kind of the physical world around us, weather, elevation, physical factors that affect life around us. So an ecologist likes to understand how species and their environment interact with each other. And that's what I do.
Wow. Did you have to go to a lot of school for that?
I did, yeah. You go through junior high and then high school, and then you go through college, 4 years of college, and then go through a master's degree program that can take 2 to 4 years, and then a PhD program that can also take 3 to 6 years. So it's kind of a lot of study. You have to really like to study and uh, and 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 uh, and really love what you study because our my love for living things and trying to understand how they see the world and how they interact with us and the environment. That's what drives me. So I'm so happy to be able to work on these kind of questions. How do fish? What do fish? How do they see the world? For example, or how does an insect see the world and interact with it? To me, these are fascinating questions, and so I get to study them, having gone through all those years of school. But the years of school were really very rewarding. So don't be afraid of education. Go for it.
So you have some stories to tell us about some fish, native fish here on the Colorado Plateau, the place that we live,
Yeah,
right?
I do indeed. I do indeed. We have 35 native fish species in Arizona. Who would have guessed? It's a desert. But 35 fish species. Most of them are very tiny, very tiny. They're just a few inches long at most. But we have, one big river in Arizona, one kind of really big river, the Colorado River. And it's a very important river for people, but it also holds and supports several species of big fish. And now when I mean big, I mean, a foot long to, one of them is a monster, up to 6 feet long. So
Wow.
bigger than you probably. I'm going to talk about three of the big river fish. someday later, maybe we'll talk about some of the little fish, which are also really fascinating. But today we're going to talk about 3 big fish. One of these is called the razorback sucker. It's got a pretty fancy scientific name. You know, every species has a scientific name. Its scientific name is Xyrocon texanus, kind of like a rockin' Texan. This is a sucker species. So the mouth, as you can see in the picture, is low on the face, and they feed on algae and the stuff that lives on rocks and whatnot. So they're always kind of sucking the rocks to get their food. One thing you see is that it's got a funny humpback shape to it. It's got they call them razorback suckers because they have a kind of a narrow, skinny top. But notice how the top of the fish is elevated into a hump. So that's one of the fish I want to talk about. These get about 2 feet long. They swim great distances, hundreds of miles sometimes. It's an endangered fish, so it's kind of a rare thing. But they're being released in some of our lakes and reservoirs, like Lake Mead, for example. Now another fish is called the humpback chub. Its scientific name is Gila saifa. So it's a pretty easy name to remember. And I have a little sculpture of one right here. And so this is about life size. They get about 1 foot long or so. I don't know if you can see that okay. But
Yes.
notice that the humpback chub it's got this very strange hump again on the forehead. Isn't that strange? 2 of the big river fish have big humps on their back. Humpback chub we know a lot about them because they're also endangered, but we've been able to study them. They can live 20 to 30 years. They often live by their own rock in the river, and they live right by their rock, and that's all that they hang out there until about April or so, when the light conditions change and they move off to reproduce. And they spawn, especially in Grand Canyon, they spawn in the Little Colorado River. Some of them may swim 20 or 30 miles to get to the mouth of the Little Colorado River and then swim up the river, spawn, and then go back to their rock. So they might live for, to be quite old, not as old as me, but very old. And they live right by their own rock. These fish feed on insects that are in the water, or insects that get trapped in the water and are floating on the surface. So humpback chub and razorback sucker, 2 fish that have they have this very strange shape of having a dorsal hump. Why would that be? Why would 2 fish in the river have a dorsal hump like this? It's very strange. No other fish have this. It almost looks like a porpoise or something. Well, so it turns out that there is one other big river fish that we need to pay attention to, and that's called the Colorado pike minnow. So, minnows are usually about this big. Well, this is a minnow that's 6 feet long, can get up to 60 or 80 pounds. So it would be a fish that's probably bigger than you. And it's a predator, but it's a predator with a problem because it has a kind of a small mouth. And so if it can't open its mouth enough to get that to swallow a humpback chub, because of the hump, the humpback chub and the razorback sucker are kind of protected from by their shape from this predator. At least that's the theory. Nobody's actually seen a Colorado pike minnow try to eat a mature humpback chub, but that's our guess, and especially because both the humpback chub and the razorback sucker have this strange shape to their bodies that may be a good way to protect themselves from this enormous minnow with a small mouth. Yeah. So that's the story of fish in the Colorado River. Again, those are just 3 of our 35 fish species in Arizona, native fish species in Arizona. We're very concerned about non-native fish also in Arizona. Things like carp and catfish. Those are all non-native species. So we're concerned about them because they might eat the eggs and the larvae of some of these native fish. Well, so with that, there's much more to learn about native fish. The Arizona Game and Fish Department does a great job They have a wonderful poster of the native fish. There's lots and lots of information about these. And
Thank you, Larry. That was great. And we are going to do some more fish activities. So thank you for all of your information. It's going to help us to learn some more about fish.
my pleasure. Good to talk to you all.
Thank you.
So we have a fish activity that's going to be really, really fun. And you'll be able to get these worksheet printouts out either on our Facebook or on our website. So you'll be able to print these out at home and you will be able to do this activity. So, but I will first kind of go through it with you so you have an idea of what to do. So your first paper that you will see, it's called Fish Anatomy. And all that is a great big fancy word is the body parts of a fish. So just like we have body parts that help us to move, eat, live, well, fish have body parts that help them in order to survive. And all of the body parts on the fish help them to eat. They have different mouths depending on what they eat. All fish have scales, and scales is a way that they protect their skin. We have skin, they have scales. So, and they all have fins to help them move, to help them balance in the water. Now, that doesn't mean that all their fins are the same, and we'll get to that in a minute. So, the first sheet that you will want to print out is the fish anatomy, or the parts of the fish, because what we're going to do at the end of our activity is you are going to act like a scientist, like Larry Stevens, and you are going to find a brand new fish specimen. And you're going to have to look at what kind of fins did it have? What kind of mouth does it have? So that fish anatomy paper is going to help you to know the body parts that are important to the fish. That's what scientists would look at. The next paper you will print out is, do all fish look alike? Well, of course we know that all fish don't look alike, right? Not all people look alike, not all animals look alike. So of course, fish look differently. And on your paper, you're going to see 3 different fish. These are native fish. And what that means is these are the fish that live here in this place called the Colorado Plateau. So native fish are the fish that belong here. Okay, and on your do all fish look alike are going to be 3 of the native fish that live here on the Colorado Plateau. And you are going to see a big difference in the shape of each one of these fish. You're going to notice how they have different fins, and you're going to notice how they have different mouths. Okay, so again, this paper is going to help you think like a scientist about how to look at the new fish you have just discovered. The next paper you will print out talks about all of the diversity of fish body parts. And again, this is going to be a really important paper for you to look at as a scientist. The first area it's going to look at, it talks about the mouth. And Dr. Larry Stevens, even in our Zoom chat, he talked about the 3 fish and how their mouths were all different depending on how they eat. So your first fish on there, you will see the mouth is faced up, so it can eat the food at the top of the water. Okay, so the new fish that you just found, does it eat things from the top of the water? It would have a mouth that faces up. Okay, our minnow that Dr. Stevens talked about, it had a very small mouth, and you are going to have to look at the fish you have found. Does it have a small mouth or a big mouth? The other thing then when we talk about the sucker fish is how it's going to be at the bottom, because where is that fish sucking from? It's sucking from the bottom of the lake, stream, wherever it lives. It's sucking all that good plant and debris. So its mouth is going to be at the bottom of its face, and it also has, it looks like a suction cup. So that's really interesting too. Does your fish have a sucker mouth? The next category is the body of your fish. That's really important to be in the environment, in the water. What kind of body length does it have? Is it a, remember Dr. Stevens talked about one of the native fish could swim for long distances. So it would have to have a body type to be able to swim long distances. Or does your fish swim short distances? So it's kind of a short little fish. The other body type that you will see on your chart here is how fast you are going to be as a fish, which could be very helpful if you have other predator fish that you want to get away from. The next category is you're going to look at all the different kinds of fins the back of the tail could have on the fish. That's going to help that fish move. So what kind of fin does your new fish that you found have? The next paper that you will be able to print out is the environment of where your fish is going to be found and what kind of future does your fish have? Because these are questions that our scientists are asking today. They look at the environment where these fish are found, such as the Colorado River. The Colorado River has gone through many, many, many different changes over the years. And scientists look at that environment. They look at that change because sometimes change is good and the fish can go fine. It doesn't affect them. Some changes can affect the fish very, very badly and almost to the point of them not being able to survive. Remember, Dr. Stevens even said that these fish were endangered. So we have to look at their environment and we have to look at their future. The other lake that we have here on the Colorado Plateau that maybe you found your fish in is the Upper Lake Mary. Now, that lake also, any lake in Arizona is going to have challenges because we are so dry here. If you're not from this area, you may not understand how dry Arizona is. And in order to have a huge lake, you need a lot of water. Well, that doesn't happen here in Arizona. So the Upper Lake Mary is a man-made lake, and it has its problems to its environment. Sometimes we don't get enough moisture, and so the lake is very, very low. That would affect the way that you live as a fish if your water's disappearing, right? So you have to look at the environment and the future of our lakes. The next one, body of water that's found here on the Colorado Plateau is Oak Creek Canyon. If you have not been to Oak Creek Canyon, ask your parents sometime to put that on a vacation list because it's a beautiful, beautiful area. One of the best drives, in my opinion, in the whole United States. So Oak Creek has several problems for its fish. One is our whole area is warming up and we're getting less water. So again, that affects our creeks as well. Another problem that happens in Oak Creek is a lot of fish that are not native. That means they were not normally found here. They were brought here and they don't belong here, but they can survive in our lakes, streams. So they are called non-native fish. And they are being brought into Oak Creek and other places, and that is wreaking havoc on our native fish because they're competing. They're competing with food. They're competing with a lot of the native fish eggs. Their babies will be eaten. So that poses a lot of problems. The other problem, unfortunately, that we have in Oak Creek Canyon is that it's such a beautiful area. We're loving it to death. So the water in the summertime, especially when all of us humans are in it, we are actually polluting that water. And clean water is very, very important to fish. So that is some of the problems that are facing our fish. So the environment, and again, the future, how is that affecting your fish? Your last page is going to be all about your new fish species that you have found. So you'll be able to draw out that fish, and questions that you will want to ask yourself is, where and what food does my fish eat? How does my fish move? How does my fish defend itself? So, and I'm also going to be using the pages that we went through. That will help me to look at what kind of mouth, what kind of body, what kind of fins does my fish have? Where did I find my fish in the environment? Okay, so my favorite kind of fish is sucker fishes. So my new fish species is a kind of a sucker fish. I'm going to draw it out here. And you know me and art, so bear with me while I draw my fish. I'm going to have a long-bodied fish because my fish is going to be able to swim long distances, and it is also, the long body is ideal for fast, short sprints, but he covers long destinations, okay? So I have a long body fish, and then here are my here's my fin. You guys are really gonna laugh when you see this, okay? And then I kind of have it, and here's its sucker mouth. Okay, and I have to give my fish an eye, and I have to give it some fins up at the top. And the thing that my fish uses for defense is usually fish that are found in the ocean, at the very, very bottom of the ocean, where it can be very deep and very dark. Some fish have this eye, or not really an eye, it's a light that comes off of its head, and it can shine a light, and that confuses other fish. So my fish would be able to do that and get away fast from predators. Or if I was hunting, this light also attracts other fish and kinds of blinds them, and then I eat them. So that's, my fish is going to have this light that comes off of its head, and it's going to have some, of course it has to have scales. All fish have scales. That's its, like its skin. And when you're decorating your fish, you could even use glitter, because I have seen some fish in the water, their scales look like glitter. So maybe you might like to glue some glitter on your new fish species. I'm also going to give some kind of line and some kind of texture to my crooked fish tail. He has this kind of a tail because he has to travel long distances, and this tail helps him to do that. I'm totally making that up. It's your fish. You're the scientist. You can come up with this data. I like red, so maybe my fish is red. Maybe your fish is blue. Red fish, blue fish, design your own fish, okay? So I'm going to put some red on my fish here, and maybe you'd like to pick a lot of different colors, like for camouflaging. That would be another great defense that your fish could have. Okay, so here's my little light that my fish has to attract prey and to also protect himself. He has a sucker mouth because he goes at the bottom. He has a long body so he can swim great distances. And he has this kind of fin tail that helps him to swim quickly in short distances. This also, he has scales on his skin. And this little thing right here, and you'll see this on your sheet. It talks about the different body parts of the fish. This here, it helps its gills. It helps the fish breathe. And that's another reason why it's so important to have non-polluted water, because they're taking that water right into their system. So I like my fish to live in clean, and you could color this blue, nice clean blue water. Now, think of a name. Remember Dr. Larry Stevens came up with some of those huge, gigantic scientific names? What's the name of your fish? So I have had so much fun with you guys today, but this isn't the ending of our fish program. Next Tuesday, which is February 23rd, we are going to go down to Page Springs, Arizona, to a fish hatchery, and we are going to get to talk to some other scientists, and we are going to watch these scientists, move native fish that have been grown up in this hatchery, and they are going to move these young fish into their natural environment, into some lakes and streams around the Colorado Plateau. So we will film that on Tuesday, February 23rd, and then we'll get it posted on our Facebook. It's going to be a great opportunity for us to be able to watch the scientists helping our native fish in their endangered state. So make sure you're watching us on Facebook. I will see you then. See you guys.
Hey! We come from that muddy river, funny looking and nearly blind. Colorado River, Gila, Saifa, Seepop, Bovani of the humpback kind. We survived the Ice Age floods and the droughts when the river was low. But the trouble really started when the Bureau built a dam 33 years ago. Glen Canyon Dam turned the Colorado River from a warm, muddy, raging stream to a regulated river with daily fluctuations and a trophy trout fisherman's dream. To all our friends on the water and the rim above River Mile 61, we wish you all a long, full life and a happy spawning run. But we are fish out of water, and now it's time to go. And the songs of the humpback chub are brought to you straight from the heart of the wild Grand Canyon, live from a river called the Colorado. Bring back the river, set that muddy water free. Bring back the river, set that muddy water free. We want to frolic and spawn our whole lives long in the shade under Whaler's boat, in the sky blue waters at the mouth of the little sea.